Hello everybody. My name is Dr. Parag Sancheti, Joint Secretary of the Society of Knee Surgeons of India. And today we are meeting to pay a tribute to a friend, a philosopher, a mentor, a guide, Professor Freddie Fu. All of us have heard about his untimely demise, which really took everybody by shock. It was just a question of 6 to 8 months, and we lost him to melanoma. I think that was one of the saddest moments of my life when I got the news. It was very difficult to believe a person who's so chirpy, who's all around you, and in the true sense, larger than life, has passed away. It took a while to really digest this news. And today, on behalf of the Society of Knee Surgeons of India, we have organized this tribute. And it actually echoes the sentiments of all sports medicine surgeons, orthopedic surgeons, his friends and colleagues who knew him. Professor Fu was born in Hong Kong in 1950. He was a pioneer orthopedic surgeon, and everybody knows his role he played in the University of Pittsburgh and the program he developed there. Professor Fu graduated from the Dartmouth College in 1974 and earned his degree in 1977. And Pittsburgh was the place where he completed his residency and later went on to become the orthopedic chair in 1997, which he held till date. He was also the president of AOSSM, the president of ISACOS, and many such organizations. His academic performances are well known to all of us, and he was really a pioneer for the ACL surgery. His concept of double bundle, which later led to the anatomic ACL reconstruction, I think has been picked up worldwide and is being followed all over. Whenever ACL surgery topic comes up, and there have been various ACL groups, Professor Freddie Fu is at the forefront. We had the fortune when he visited Pune for the Pune knee course, and this was the time he also visited our institute, and it was really such a great moment to receive him for the Pune knee course where he gave the oration. Dr. Sachin Tapasvi had invited him, and later he also visited the Sancheti Institute, and he was really, when he met my father, which you can see in the picture, he was so, full of energy. Look at the handshake he does, and it was really a big honor. Even though he was busy, he had to go back. He addressed the residents, he spoke to them, we honored him, and he was absolutely there, even with the residents teaching. That's what he is. Today, the Society of Knee Surgeons of India salutes the master, and as I said, ski is just a name. This society echoes the sentiments of many other societies who feel the pain. In Freddie Fu, we have lost an institution. This has left a big void, which is going to be very, very difficult to fill up, not only for his family, but also for his patients, his colleagues, his students, and it's going to be very, very difficult. With this, I wish to request Dr. Ashok Rajgopal, who is the President of Society of Knee Surgeons of India, to share his thoughts on Professor Freddie Fu.
Friends, it is indeed a privilege to be able to pay tribute to Dr. Freddie Fu. In life, there are good surgeons, great surgeons, and then there are characters. Roll them all into one, and you have Freddie Fu. A master surgeon, a pioneer, a visionary, and overall an amazing intellectual. He was the torchbearer for arthroscopy surgeons around the world. He was born in Hong Kong and migrated to the United States and was the David Silver Professor and Chairman of the Orthopaedic Department at the University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine. In the year 2010, he was appointed by the university as the 8th Distinguished Service Professor. Dr. Fu is remembered for his many achievements in the medical community, including establishing the sports medicine program at the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center. And during his career, he developed surgical procedures to repair the knees, shoulders, and Achilles tendons of elite athletes and world-renowned ballet dancers, advancements that would later benefit people with non-sports related injuries. Dr. Freddie Fu was an incredible academician. As I was researching into his achievements, one was quite stunned by everything he had contributed. His major interest lay in the anatomical ACL reconstruction, clinical outcomes, and bioengineering of the sports-related problems. Honored with over 250 professional awards and honors, having written over 173 book chapters, having made over 1,200 national and international presentations, and writing over 675 peer-reviewed articles and editing 30 major orthopedic textbooks. The list is actually mind-boggling. With an H index of 100 and nearly 36,000 citations, both among the top of all orthopedic researchers. In the year 2019, the University of Pittsburgh was named the #1 university in the world for ACL publications over a 40-year period, and Dr. Fu was named the most published author with 378 publications on the ACL alone. Dr. Freddie Fu died at the age of 70 on the 1st of October after a long battle with melanoma, and was memorialized by family members and others during the service in the University of Pittsburgh campus. One of his colleagues, Dr. Ward, asked the question, what is Freddie Fu's true legacy? And she replied, I would submit that it is the example of compassion for people, helping of others, and desire to improve the lives of those around him. Dr. West recalled Dr. Fu as a man who loved the city of Pittsburgh, giving tours to his guests and treating them like royalty. I have a taste of this wonderful personality. I had the privilege of spending a week with Freddie in 2001. After our initial introductions were done, he proceeded to take me on a tour of the department and the facility. At the end of it, he stopped to tell me that he'd had an emergency in the family and would possibly be unable to be with me over the next couple of days. Disappointed as I was, it was small solace that I was at his center seeing some of the things he had set in motion. 2 days later, I got a message from him early in the morning to come down to the lobby of the hotel at 7 a.m. What followed in the next few hours was truly magical and an incredible experience. From showing me the city to having coffee in a small restaurant to experiencing a day full of learnings and topped up with a lovely dinner. This was one of the most amazing days of my professional life. As I left him in the evening, he presented me with a departmental tie and a scarf, touching to say the least. As he got into the car to say his goodbye, I realized that in the face of his personal commitments, he had come in to fulfill his commitment to me. At his memorial service, rich tributes were attributed to Dr. Freddie Fu. Dr. Ward, one of his professional colleagues, said when people found out where she worked, they would share their delightful stories that they had experienced with Dr. Freddie Fu. Really did not care if you were a sports star, a coal miner, or a politician. He treated everybody with dignity and compassion. She went on to add, during one of my last days with him, he told me not to be sad. He told me he had taken advantage of every opportunity in life and he had lived life to the fullest. He told me he lived the American dream. Possibly the most telling comment or eulogy at the memorial service was that Dr. Freddie Fu, the man who loved so much about life, faced the impending end of his life with peace and extraordinary courage, grounded in faith, and also comforted, I'm sure, by the knowledge that the years he had been given had been lived so fully and so well. He is survived by his son and daughter, his wife of 47 years, Ms. Hilda Bang Fu, 5 grandchildren, his mother, Mabel Fu, sisters Suan Lim and Janet Maiba, and brothers Frank and Nigel Fu. Sadly, he was preceded in death by his father, Ying Fu. Finally, my tribute to Dr. Freddie Fu, the man, the legend, the magician. May he rest in peace. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Rajgopal, for that tribute. I think Professor Freddie Fu has left an impression with whomever he met. He was a person who nobody could forget once you meet him once. I remember him when we did our fellowship. He was a brilliant, a surgeon and a complete leader in the arena of sports medicine. This was one of the pictures we took, and you can see Volker Musahl also there. And he made us pose, and he sent his student up to take this photograph. And he always believed in perfection, And he was a person who, as I said, impacted everybody whom he met. It's stunning to me what kind of an impact even one person can give, as said by Steve Case, and Professor Fu was an example for this. May I now request Professor Volker Musahl, who was probably the closest amongst us to him, who brushed shoulders with him every day. When we did his fellowship, traveling fellowship, Volker Musahl was there always with us and taking care of us, showing the surgeries. I still remember, all the surgeries he did. And it was the extraarticular tenodesis. He showed us the Lamere, modified Lamere, and the research he was doing. Volker was really, doing all the research, helping Freddie Fu in everything. And I'm sure Volker must be feeling a sense of great loss. May I request Volker to please express his views and present his tribute?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me. Of course, along the way, as we toured you through all the facilities, I also got fired many times. And so that certainly belongs into that memory. I was asked to maybe share 2 fond memories, and I can tell you the first time I met Freddie was in 1999 when I interviewed in Pittsburgh, and I spent a whole week. I was quite amazed, of course, by everything that I saw. But the number one most impressive thing to me for Freddie is his family. More than all the orthopedic accolades, I really enjoyed meeting everyone, and I see Gordon right there, and Gordon and I spent many fun times together, skiing and drinking wine and all kinds of things. And at the end of that week, where you have to imagine I was a student in Germany and really not anyone at all, and I was chauffeured through the city, and I had other fellows take care of me just the way I would later take care of them. At the end of this week, he had a meeting with me in his office at Kaufman Building, and Freddie was sitting there with his feet on the table, with his arms behind here, and asked me, "So how do you like this place?" And I was just blown away, of course. And then 21 years later, I'm still here. I can also tell you about his kindness. a few years ago, I was pretty sick, and he comes to my house and he brought food for Tina and the kids, and just took care so lovingly of all of us. And I know you all have the same type of memories, but that's how special he is. And maybe the two most important lessons that I've learned, I think, are along those lines. He always attributed most of his lessons to his mentor, Dr. Ferguson. But I'm not so sure. I think Freddie really is so special. I think we have to attribute this to him. But he always told me, take good care of your patients, and they will take care of you. And in particular, I had a patient early on in my career who was very unhappy with their outcome, and Dr. Fu made me continue to communicate with that patient and talk until eventually the problem basically solved itself. And so those lessons, I will never forget, and I will try to teach and give on and give back to those that I will teach. And, as you mentioned just a few minutes ago, I think the biggest lesson that I've learned from him is how he was so strong and courageous in his last few days and weeks. And I have a very happy memory when I remember how Gordon and Joyce and Hilda and everyone surrounded him, and how comfortable he was. And I will never forget that. And it makes me feel at ease when it's my time, when it's our time. And I can tell you that, in our department, we have a big void right now, obviously. In all of our hearts, we have a big void. There are many people in the department where I work that have known Freddie much, much longer than I have, maybe twice as long. For example, Dr. Ward, who you mentioned. There's a lot of emptiness and a lot of mourning, but it's okay. We obviously have to take our time, everyone, to do that. And it brings us closer together too. So, and as Freddie told us, don't be sad, and celebrate my life. I have lived life to the fullest. If you haven't already done so, you should all watch or listen to the interview that Bruce Ryder did with Freddie. It's a really amazing interview, and Bruce did not realize that Freddie was saying goodbye to him. So listen to that interview. So those are my words right now. I'm still working through all this, but thank you for having me and let me speak. It feels good to see all of you and knowing that there's friends and a big community, and I really can't wait to see you all again, hopefully in very, very due time, so we can sit together and have camaraderie and friendship. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Volker. Those were very sentimental words and really brought back so many memories which we spent in Pittsburgh in your department. I think Professor Freddie Fu was always there for the sports people, and the Rooney Sports Complex, which he so proudly showed us. This was one of the visits which we made there, and the most important thing is to try and inspire people so that they can be great in whatever they want to do. And this was one of Kobil Briani, his patients. And look at the photographs which he used to click for us. Whenever also he took teaching program, he taught us. Just there were 8 of us, 2 traveling fellowship programs together. He was always, excited, eager to teach. And it's not one person, 8% or 800 or 8,000. He would have the same vigor. He frequently visited Hong Kong, where he was from, and I had met Professor Freddie Fu twice in Hong Kong when Professor Patrick Young had organized a meeting at the CUHK. May I now request Patrick Young from Hong Kong, the city from where Freddie Fu comes from, where he was born, to please share his tribute and his memories of Professor Fu. Over to Patrick.
Thank you very much, Parag. Can you see the slides, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think thanks Volker and Parag for organizing this memorial tribute to Freddie's, right? As you know, Freddie is a native Hong Kong boy, right? So today I'm just make use of a few slides that he sent to me previously. I mean, when he was in Hong Kong, presenting lectures, doing operation and so on, to highlight some of the memories that we share together, right? This is his grandfather, right? Mr. Fu Ping Chang, right? So, and then as mentioned by Parag, they originally from Guangdong, Foshan City, but Freddie was born in Hong Kong. And indeed, the grandfather of Freddie is I would say very, very famous in the history of China. So he was the United Nations precursors, and then and worked as the right hand person of one of the people named Sun Yat-sen, which people call it like the father of China. And this is family. He shared his photos with me. So I'm not sure if you know who is Freddie, but so I let you know. This guy's Freddie. And the one on his right-hand side is Professor Frank Fu, who's now with us in Hong Kong. Frank is his elder brother. And then we recognize Frank as like the father of sports science of Hong Kong, right? So Frank has a very, very influential influence on the development of sports science in Hong Kong. He's a sports scientist, right? And then, as mentioned, he's a native Hong Kong boy. Still remembers, Freddie has a lot of WhatsApp group or WeChat group, social media communications group with Hong Kong different, circle of peoples. And one of the biggest group was that he's every day over the past years, right? He sent messages and beautiful pictures to his alumnus in Hong Kong. He's graduate at St. Paul's College of Hong Kong. This is Freddie. And again, he is, as probably he mentioned several times, especially during the interview with Bruce Ryder, he's a very elite athlete from Hong Kong, and so playing basketball. So so winning a lot of champions. And then he moved to Dartmouth, right? Back in 1970s, right? And then start his life and career and his dream in America, right? So and then everyone know about his glorious, achievement in Americas. And most important, I think he is a very good homemaker. He's a beautiful family. I know that Gordon is here today. Send my regards to all your families. He did come back to Hong Kong very often, right? Probably you know about very well, almost like every year or every other years, right? And then about 6 years back when he came back to Hong Kong, we brought him back to his hometown in China, in Foshan. And this is the ancestor temple for the memorial of the Fu's family, right? So, and then he spent quite a quick day over there, right? And we took photos over there. This was my first photo with Freddie back in 20 years back when he was in Hong Kong attending one conference. This was the last photo I took with Freddie. And the one on his right-hand side is Frank, as I mentioned, his elder brother. So, and then Freddie was in Hong Kong regularly, and as our distinguished professor of the Chinese University of Hong Kong, with a lot of memories. And then he operated a lot in Hong Kong many times in my hospitals. And I think for those who have been working with him, you all understand when Freddie is working in the operation room, especially doing a live surgery and so on, everybody is like very, very excited. I mean, to a certain extent, quite, in pressure, right? And so, but he always is very eager to teach and share and so on. And he still asks for the outcome of the patients regularly every year for those patients he operated, and asks for me to send my regards to the patients, right? And all the beautiful memories in Hong Kong, as mentioned by Parag, there's been Hong Kong many times, right? This was one of his lectures developed, that delivered in Hong Kong a few years back. It's about excellence in orthopedic research, and he is the CHK Distinguished Professor. Right? I just make use of some of his slides to share with us some of his influence on the evolutions of orthopedic sports medicines. I think he's famous in the double bundle ACL and the anatomical ACL. He always teach us to think out of the box. And his favorite lecture recent years about innovation in sports medicine taught us a lot on how to, look at evidence, right? And also how to create something, even though we encourage you to think out of the box, but you need evidence, right? On both basic science and clinical. And we need positive and negative results, which indeed is very insightful. And one of the lectures that I listened to him in 2009 is his presidential lectures in AOSSM, right? He took the presidency of AOSSM about the credibility and integrity, which is very important for all of us to remember. And this is one of his favorite slides, "Don't be a dinosaur," which I think is very, very right in that he always he's a very energetic person, very passionate person, but he's always humble, grateful, and always willing to teach others. So even he's such a great legend. Last but not the least, I think one of his favorite slides over the past few years is about the respect of the nature. Now he's back to nature with peace. So I think this is the last slide of my memories. I think this is the slide that prepared by Dr. Chanakan and myself on behalf of the APCAS, Asia Pacific Knee Arthroscopy Sports Medicine Society. I think he is definitely a pioneer who leads the field of sports medicine in the world, mentoring and teaching a lot of Asian surgeons, deeply influencing and advancing the development of orthopedic sports medicine in Asia and over the past many years, and always inspiration and learning point for all of us to remember. That's all about my sharing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Patrick. That was indeed very insightful. Some of those photographs are very rare photographs, and we are thankful to you for sharing them with us. I think what is important is that he was a true teacher, and I just want to echo what Patrick just said. And when we were in Pittsburgh, and when we went to the OR, it was like a big celebration in the OR. It's a very vibrant OR when he's operating. There were actually 8 of us behind us, and he's operating, and you can see the slide where he's actually taken time off from the surgery to explain to us a concept, and he went back and finished the surgery. That is the kind of involvement he has, and that's why people take to him, because he was a true teacher. And one thing I like about him, which I want to quote Nelson Mandela here, is what he used to say: "I never lose. I either win or I learn." So Professor Freddie Fu, again, is a testimony to that. He always, never lost. He never gave up. He learned something. And, this quote is also very apt for him. The only way to discover the limits of the possible is to go beyond them into the impossible. I think that was Freddie Fu for us. May I now have the privilege to introduce to you Professor David Parker, who needs no introduction. But today he's going to represent ISAKOS, and also going to be speaking. He was a past president of APCAS and a very, very close friend who they worked together on numerous bodies, including the ACL study group, and also in the strategic committee and the leadership management in ISAKOS. I request Professor David Parker, I know it's late for you, David, but thanks for hanging on there, to share your memories of Professor Freddie Fu. Over to David.
Many, many thanks, Parag, and hello, dear friends around the world. Many thanks to Parag, Sachin, Ashok, and the Society of Knee Surgeons in India for the invitation to be part of this very important tribute to our friend and colleague, Freddie Fu. I'm certainly honoured and humbled to be a part of this, and actually feel somewhat inadequate when trying really to capture in a very brief talk the overwhelming importance of someone like Freddie to me personally and to us as a profession. However, I'm sure that the combination of these many tributes from so many people around the world will go a long way towards demonstrating really what a profound influence he had on so many people. And it was really lovely to hear Volker's reflections recently. So, as Isaac Newton said, if I've seen further than others, it is by standing on the shoulder of giants. And Freddie certainly was a giant in our field. He was the one we all wanted to talk to, and more importantly, to listen to, the one we all wanted to come and speak at our meetings, the only one we all went to for advice. For many years, the first name in knee surgery, and it makes this loss so much harder to accept, as to many of us, Freddie really seemed like he was immortal. This is a picture that I love. It's from Isakos when it was in Shanghai in 2017, and there's really two giants in this picture. Yao Ming, the very famous Chinese basketballer, was literally a giant, but also metaphorically a giant for the Chinese people, as Freddie was in the area of orthopedic sports medicine. This picture was from 2009 Isakos, when Freddie took over the presidency of Isakos from Moises Cohen. And Isakos was a society that Freddie loved and contributed greatly to over the years, and has been a very valuable member right up until recent times. And there are so many facets to this amazing person, but for this brief tribute, I'd like to just focus on his incredible contributions as a scientist and educator, a mentor, as many people have already said, and a friend. As a true surgeon, scientist, and educator, I think Freddie really defined what translational research really means. And I first met Freddie when he came out to Australia just over 15 years ago and spoke at a meeting and introduced to us in Australia the double bundle concept. I was a young surgeon. He was this famous, incredibly energetic speaker telling us things about the ACL we hadn't previously imagined. And since that time, he's really gone to absolutely extraordinary lengths to study this ligament and share what he has learned with the rest of the world for the benefit of so many surgeons and their patients. And I think, as someone who is also interested in research, I really think he defines the qualities we all strive for in research. He had an undying thirst for knowledge. He really did relish being challenged by other people at meetings, as we all saw so many times. And he really believed that research was never complete. It's always a continuing and evolving journey. Freddie directly mentored hundreds of surgeons and has undoubtedly inspired thousands of surgeons around the world. When I invited Freddie to come to Sydney in 2018 as a guest speaker for the APCAS meeting, for his invited lecture, I asked him to do something a bit different to his usual presentations on ACL, and actually asked him to give a presentation about his role as a mentor and the importance of this. So with his usual flair, he said, no problem, and gave a magnificent oration on this topic. And each of his slides was carefully framed around the border with names of previous fellows, so many of whom have gone on to become prominent surgeons around the world. I can't let it go past without mentioning that Freddie also generously came to this meeting at his own expense, made his contribution with his usual flair, then within 24 hours flew off to the next meeting. As we all know, he was always very selflessly given of his time for others and was always a great supporter of the Asia-Pacific region. And I think it is this mentoring and inspiration of so many young surgeons that is possibly Freddie's greatest contribution, as it allows his incredible knowledge and achievements to live on through his previous students, providing an ongoing benefit to medicine indefinitely. Finally, Freddie was a great friend to all of us, an incredibly generous person with real empathy and a genuine interest in others. I believe the last time I actually saw Freddie in person was at Isakos in 2019, where we had this photo taken, since COVID has stopped us traveling for the last 2 years. Nonetheless, he was always in regular communication, as many of you know, especially over the last couple of years with the many photographs of nature and places he was traveling around the world. When I heard from Volker a few weeks ago about Freddie's illness, I sent him an email with good wishes from myself and his friends in Australia. And in true Freddie form, within a few minutes, he responded with a very heartfelt message back to me. And then a few minutes later came another message with good wishes for my father, who Freddie had also known for many years. I'm sure he spent a lot of his last week sending hundreds of emails to friends around the world, and I'm sure it must have been some comfort to see how many around the globe he had a profound impact on. Again, thank you for this invitation to speak, and thank you, Freddie. Rest in peace. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. That was indeed very touching. And so many points which you spoke, all of us can actually relate to them. so closely. You know, one of the things, you just send him an email, and if he's not on a flight or not operating, it's just 5 minutes he'll reply. If you send him a WhatsApp message, again he will reply so promptly. You know, that's what really made him different, and all of us can relate to this particular aspect of his. You know, I still remember when we visited Pittsburgh, he took us to this Rooney complex, and it will be very, you know, many people won't know, but he was primarily responsible for the conception and oversight of this design and construction of the 80 million UPMC Rooney Sports Complex, which is made over 60 acres, and he collected the funds from all over and made this a reality. It's something you have to see, and we as the traveling fellows had the good fortune to see it. We also visited the UPMC Sports Medicine Center, which now in 2018 got renamed as the Freddie Fu Sports Medicine Center. So this whole complex is dedicated to him. Many people, many students, many fellows have trained under him, and today we are lucky to have Dr. Anil Ranawat. Anil also trained in Pittsburgh and did his fellowship program. Anil is currently at HSS, but he was also with him in Goa and was there in the OR with Freddie Fu, and shares many memories. So Anil, over to you for your memories and your tribute for Freddie Fu.
Thank you, Parag. And it's great to see so many old friends. It's exactly what Freddie would want. And I thought Dr. Parker and Dr. Rajgopal and Volker all had amazing talks, and Dr. Hung. What I would like to share about Freddie is something that we're showing right now, is his world interconnectivity. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of amazing Asian surgeons and North American surgeons, African surgeons, European surgeons, but there's not that many global surgeons. And Freddie truly was a global surgeon. And that's just an amazing testament to him. What I'd want to say, I wanted to say kind of three stories, because we all know the story of Freddie and what he's done, and his CV speaks for himself, but three personal stories that I can relate. One, when I was a fellow there, he was so honored that he goes, hey, Anil, call your dad. Have your dad come. Have your dad give grand rounds. So I call my dad, and my dad and Freddie knew each other, but were never great friends. My dad gave grand rounds, had dinner with Freddie, and they built a great relationship, although they both do knee surgery on the other side of the spectrum, but they had a great immigrant story. They both lived the American dream. They both grew up in Asia. They both overcame tremendous amount of cultural and conflicts when in the 70s, it was a very different time point than it is now. And they both were tremendous champions of diversity and inclusion well before it was in vogue as it is now. And I think, one of the many things that Freddie is famous for, we can talk about his surgery and his CV, but his approach to diversity and inclusion was tremendous. His approach to listening to every single person was tremendous. And that really what made him a global leader. And I think Parag is very poignant to say he is a Mandela-like character. Although, as to Volker's point, he's a Mandela-like character who could fire you at any moment. And if you weren't on point in the OR, he would let you know. But he was a tremendous teacher and mentor. The second story is what Parag kind of brought up was, again, I was a lonely fellow. I was a nobody. And I go, Dr. Fu, would you come to India and be my guest? And it would really, I think, be the world to India. He did it. We operate together, although in an intense environment. That's Freddie style. And it was an amazing experience. And that brought him to many other trips to India and brought him to many other relationships with Parag, with Ashok, with Sachin, Dinshaw, all of my Indian arthroscopic friends. So, I really think my little contribution to Indian arthroscopy was bringing Freddie to India, and then Freddie does the rest of the work. And last but not least, one of my fondest memories actually was at his funeral. And I was walking home from having dinner with Volker and a lot of our old fellows and residents, and I see this bright red car that had so much Freddie about it. It was a Porsche Cayenne, I think. And I saw Gordon walking out of the hotel, and Gordon and I know each other, but we're not great friends. And Gordon said, "Hey, Anil, would you want to just go for a ride?" And we drove around Pittsburgh, and we just told stories of my year in Pittsburgh and stories of Freddie. And that's how you make Freddie stay alive, is doing this event, telling stories of Freddie. There's not an OR case that I don't quote Freddie Fu, especially an ACL case. I will miss him dearly. He was my greatest mentor besides my father, and that really says a lot. And a surgeon is really confident, to Dr. Parker's point, when they truly mentor people, because they're confident in themselves. And then if you have it, as my dad would say, you give it. Freddie did that to the 10th millionth degree. So I thank you guys all. I appreciate the opportunity. You're all welcome to HSS, and I will talk to you in Freddie style every time. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Anil. I didn't know you were there for the funeral, but you got a chance to pay your last tributes. And I didn't even know you met Gordon. So, yeah, I think it's a small world. And we never got to meet the family, but we knew he was close to the family. And just to echo what you said, he was a true teacher. And, he always, what you rightly said, believed in diversity, inclusion, belonging. And he was there for everybody, even if it was a national fellow, international fellow. And when we did the fellowship, we were lucky that there was this graduation ceremony, and all his residents and fellows, my God, I'm telling you, at least half of them had tears in their eyes when they were leaving the department. And believe me, that was a sight to watch. I've never seen many students cry, but here, the kind of respect which was seen after the ceremony was absolutely incredible. And when we did the fellowship, we were lucky. And Freddie in his style made us sit on the first row, gave us all the respect. It was amazing. I just fail to understand how one person can be so multifaceted and do so many things and keep everybody happy. I don't think there's a single person on this earth who probably is unhappy with Freddie Fu. The next speaker is none other than Alan Getgood. Everybody knows him from Canada. Again, he has frequently been at the Pune knee course and is no stranger to Pune or to India. Has a very close association with Sachin and many other colleagues in India. So may I request Alan to share his experience and share his tribute. I know he and Professor Freddie Fu go a long way. Alan.
Thanks very much, Parag. Yeah, it's a great honor to join you all this morning or this evening, depending what part of the world you're in. And it really is a great opportunity for us to pay tribute to Freddie. And I say Freddie because I think you can go anywhere in the world and you just mention the word Freddie. You don't really need to say Freddie Fu. Everyone knows who Freddie is. And he had such a profound effect on many of us who have had the pleasure of being able to work with him and know him and be friends with him. I thought I would share three simple slides. The sort of the term of affability, availability, and ability is a bit of a cliche, but really I think it epitomizes Freddie in many ways, in that he gave up so much of his time and was so engaging to many people. And my first experience with Freddie actually was as a young resident. I think it was probably in my second year of residency, and I was working with a surgeon in the UK who were interested. We were interested in doing some double bundle ACL reconstructions, and I reached out to Freddie by email. I think it was a Sunday evening in Cambridge, and I got an email back within 5 minutes, simply saying, "Give me a phone number, I phone you." And sure enough, I gave him my cell phone, and he called me, and there I was at the second year orthopedic resident, and Freddie Fu was talking to me about double bundle reconstruction, and it was just incredible experience. And a couple of years later, I had the opportunity to visit Freddie in Pittsburgh as a British Association of Surgery of the Knee, so a Basque traveling fellowship, and it was a great time, and he taught me an awful lot in that day, those couple of days I spent with him. The next thing is really, and it's already been touched upon, is just academic excellence and his integrity as a surgeon. He researched many areas around the knee, but of course we all know him for a lot of the work that he's done with the ACL. But his views changed, and he was willing to change his mindset based on the research that he did. And whilst I had the opportunity to present at the Sport Medicine Grand Rounds in 2015, I didn't necessarily agree with some of the things that I was talking about at that time, particularly in regards to the anterolateral ligament. But as long as you were doing it in a solid academic way, he was very accepting of that. And I still laugh about some of the meetings being out where he would pull out a $50 note and ask anybody if he could find an ALL in his knee, and he would roll up the leg of his pants to show his knee. And I think he's such a character in that end. But certainly he did give me some hard times on the podium, but it was all very much in good faith, and we often shared a laugh afterwards. So I appreciate him and his ability to push me to be a better clinician and a better researcher. And I think the last thing I want to really remember him by is just his tireless energy. And Volker touched on it already, and there've been many comments about how he has lived his life, and he's had a great life. And I'll remember him for some of the fun times we've had. And certainly this was a great academic meeting on the Panther Symposium in June 2019, but we had a lot of fun afterwards. And I think this photograph, and I'll cherish this for many years to come. So with that, I'd just like to say thank you to Parag, Sachin, Ashok for the invitation to be part of this this tribute, and for sure we will miss him. So rest in peace, Freddie. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Alan. Thank you so much. The video is now ready, and after that, Nico, after the video, it's going to be you. So Ashok, we have the video ready for Andy.
Hi there, it's Andy Williams here. I'd like to thank the organisers of this so much for inviting me to speak about Freddie. It's lovely to be able to say a few words and give my personal view on what an amazing man he was. Freddie's contribution to the science, to the understanding of our field, was second to none. He had a never-ending fascination for the knee. You could just tell that when you met him. A never-ending desire to get to the truth about the knee, and a never-ending desire and energy to produce. The number of papers he wrote was extraordinary. He could also drive you mad. And when I first heard about him, I couldn't understand what the fuss was about. His lectures would drag on twice as long as they should have been. When he got excited about a topic, he would speak so quickly you couldn't understand a word he said. I can remember organising a symposium at the Isakos in Osaka in 2009, and I was terrified of him overrunning. Hoshino said to me, "Andy, if he overruns his time, I'm walking out." So I emailed Freddie, 10 times to insist he kept to the script. I said what I wanted to hear from him and what I didn't want to hear from him. I think he ran 2 minutes over, but I take credit for being the first person to control him, maybe. That football he operated on, my God, we've never heard the last of it. Endless mentions in his talks, videos of the player playing. Now, I deal with a lot of footballers, and I suspect for Freddie, perhaps it was a novelty. But the funniest time was when the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center was thinking about opening a branch in London. Freddie was flown over to a meeting. I was invited to it. And at the end, having heard all the advanced plans for setting up in London, Freddie looked at me straight in the eyes and said, "Andy, now you work for me." Needless to say, that did annoy me. And at that stage, I thought he was a rather arrogant guy, always taking over. But what I learned in time is he has a good heart. And everything he did, even those annoying things, were for the betterment of people, the betterment of his patients, and also the betterment of his beloved organization, UPMC. He was a good man. Incredible mentor. He's touched so many young surgeons who now sadly are older surgeons. He had never-ending love for people and also took great delight in cultivating them and getting the best out of them. Over the last 10 years, he emailed me almost daily. It wasn't just me, it was many people around the world. He would get up at 4 or 5 in the morning, go for a walk, take some photographs, and send those photographs of wildlife or whatever he saw, often associated with some philosophical piece or a song, a link to a song on YouTube. He was incredible. Occasionally something to do with work, but actually rarely. In the Singapore Orthopaedic Association meeting of 2013, I was on the stand with him in a symposium for residents, as you can see. I spoke about building a successful orthopaedic practice. I'm pleased to say that I had one slide about fame and fortune and how to achieve that, but most of my slides were about the importance of life away from work. If you mess that up, you never get it back. And then Freddie spoke about his decades of looking after young surgeons and encouraging them. His talk was inspiring. Again, it was largely about ethics, morals, and the power of family and the importance of it. He got it. His heart was really in the right place. He also, I think, has been inspirational in his death. He died on the 24th of September, 2021. I knew he was seriously ill for about 3 months. But the weekend before he died, I was in conversation with Charlie Brown via email, and Charlie said that he'd heard Freddie been given 10 days to live. And he said, go on, Andy, you must email him. Freddie would like that. So this is my email sent at 10:10 in the evening in London to Freddie. Dear Freddie, I've just heard the news regarding your health. I hope that you're comfortable and not suffering too much. Needless to say, I'm greatly saddened. You've been an inspiration to me and contributed so much to further our speciality. To know you has been a huge honor for me. I know countless others will feel the same, but I wanted to thank you personally. You've influenced me in so many ways and encouraged me to keep up the work. As well as the science, I've felt your positive influence in so many aspects of life. When we spoke in Singapore together about orthopedic careers and success, your lecture was just fantastic, showing that you appreciated life away from work. With every best wish and kindest regards, Andy. This man was dying, but 19 minutes later, he sent me the last email that I was to receive. Truly inspirational. Freddie Fu, rest in peace. Thank you.
Wow, that was amazing. You know, the story you told us, and to get an email 6 days before he left this world in 19 minutes is something unheard of. I think that memory will last us more than a lifetime. You know, I echo whatever you said. You know, one of the things which you said rightly, he was a person who grows on you. The first time you meet him, you feel a little bit different. Oh, why is this guy so much all about himself and talking and this? And then, you know, it just takes a few hours or maybe a few days to love him. That's what he was. And one of the things I always learned from him, I always saw, he was always so well dressed, so dapper. You know, this was always his, you know, he will make sure he is in the best of clothes, attire. And this is something we learned from him, because style is not a display of wealth, but an expression of imagination. And I truly agree to that. And this is the same I've seen in my friend Nico. Nico also is always so dapper, dresses so well. And now may I request my brother Nico, who's also the current president of APKS, the Asia Pacific Knee Society, Asia Arthroplasty Society in Asia, and APAS, Asia Pacific Arthroplasty Society, to please share his
Good afternoon,
vision.
everyone.
Yeah. Yes, over to Nico.
Thank you, Parag.
Good afternoon.
First of all, I would like to thank Parag Ashok and Sachin for putting me in this tribute. It's a great honor for me. And we know that Freddie was a giant in the world orthopedic community. And we all felt such a great loss when we heard the news of his passing. And I'm very sad because 3 days before he left us, we still have a chat. And by this, I would like to show you a short video that I made for all of us to remember the great icons of the world, Freddie Fu. Good afternoon, everyone. On September 24, 2021, the world orthopedic community suffered a great loss. Our friend, the great guru Freddie Fu, has passed away at the age of 70. For me, it is still such a shock because 3 days before he passed, we still chatted, although he sounded very weak. Freddie Fu was without a doubt one of the most recognized and beloved sport orthopedic surgeons and was acclaimed worldwide for his innovative research and teaching. I would call Freddie a man who never sleeps. He was always available to take anyone's call from anywhere in the world at any time. He was such a gracious and helpful friend. Throughout his life and career, he worked passionately to set a bar high and set a higher standard for his peers, fellows, and residents. He was a great inspiration to all of us. I am sure each and every one of our life has been touched by his work. I would like to thank also my brother Parag Sanchetti for inviting me here today to pay a tribute to the greatest magicians, Freddie Fu. I have prepared a simple video for all of us to remember the huge impact Freddie had made to the orthopedic and sport medicine community in the world.
Died. Dr. Freddie Fu was the creator of UPMC's world-renowned sports medicine program, teacher to generations of budding surgeons, and a beloved member of the Pittsburgh community.
Nico, that was amazing. You know, each of those photographs, if you auction them, they will be worth a fortune. You know, lovely, Nico. I think it was really a very emotional time to see these memories and some of those rare photographs which you have so nicely preserved, Nico. Appreciate your tribute, and I'm sure, Gordon, you will pass on this movie and the whole proceedings will give you, but really very nice, Nico. Uh, with this, we move on with the further tributes, and I now wish to call on Professor Charlie Brown. All of us know him. He is currently the director of International Knee and Joint Center in Abu Dhabi, and formerly was the chief of sports medicine, Brigham and Women's Hospital at the Harvard Medical School in Boston. Over to Dr. Brown.
Thank you, Parag, and I'm really honored that you've asked me to participate in this celebration of Freddie's life. And Freddie and I were friends, and our paths kind of overlapped because we're about the same age. And I can remember the first time I met Freddie. America was a different place. There were not many Blacks in the meetings or in associations or in sports medicine, not many Asians, not many women. And so I can remember Freddie at one of the meetings coming up and sitting beside me, and we talked, and he would sit in the back and he would say, "Slide no good, slide no good." And this started his rise in Pittsburgh. And I think when I remember him, I think of a person who had unlimited energy and passion in the pursuit of knowledge to improve patient care. And as everyone has said, almost all of the speakers, he was a mentor to orthopedic surgeons all over the world. And this was the first lunchtime workshop we did at Issachus at the Rio meeting. And it was standing room only. The fire marshal wouldn't let any more people in the room. So after Freddie gave his talk, there was no place to sit. So here's Freddie Fu sitting on the podium. Julian Feller is giving his talk. And this was the faculty for the session. And of course, Freddie was the star, and he attracted a huge audience. And as I mentioned, Freddie changed the face of what a sports medicine surgeon could look like. And I think one of his proudest accomplishments was winning the Diversity Award in Orthopedics, awarded by the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons. And he really opened the door for many underrepresented people to participate in sports medicine. A few things he taught us. He taught us about the functional anatomy of the ACL, and this is, I think, one of, in my opinion, one of his most significant works. He taught us about the ridges, and I was dreaming the other night, maybe these ridges should be renamed after Freddie Fu, the lateral intercondylar ridge of Fu, because they really allowed us to understand the anatomy of the ACL and perform better surgery. He also worked on improving surgical techniques, and he taught us that the classic transtibial approach often led to non-anatomic placement of the graft. He also described the three-portal technique, which I continue to use today, and I think this is another one of his advantages. And so I'll just end with a couple stories. One of the stories that I like to remember is I went to one of the Pitt Panther courses, and Freddie had everyone up in his office, and he was serving wine, and everyone's drinking wine, and I'm sitting there drinking a Coke, and Freddie comes over to me and he says, "Charlie, why are you not drinking wine?" And I said, "Freddie, I don't really drink wine." And so he went away, and he came back about 5 minutes. He said, "My wine is good." He said, "This is expensive wine." And I said, "No, Freddie, I just don't drink wine." And then he went away, and then he came back and he turned to me and he said, "Charlie, that's why you need X-ray to do ACL." And so that was the humor of him. And then the generosity. I can remember at that same meeting, there was a hurricane that came up the coast. So many of the flights for the faculty were canceled getting out of Pittsburgh. And the next morning, Sunday morning, Freddie Fu called me at 7:30 in the morning. and said he couldn't come down because this was his day to spend with his family, but he would send his fellow down and take us out to dinner. And sure enough, that evening, the fellow showed up, and Freddie actually called us at dinner. He said, "Charlie, he take you to a good place?" And I said, "Yes, Freddie, he's taking very good care of me." So may he rest in peace, my dear brother. You shine so brightly, showed us the way. You gave our special in the world so much, and you left us much too soon, and it's a loss for us all. Rest in peace, Freddie.
Thank you very much, Dr. Brown. Thanks for those memories, and I hope you started to drink wine and don't use X-rays anymore. But let me, before we go on to the next presentation, Charlie Brown has been regularly coming to Pune, and he mentors the Pune knee course, and Sachin will tell you a little more about it when he presents. But Charlie, we appreciate. And one year when Freddie Fu was there, I think that was an amazing year we had, and there are so many memories. But thank you so much for sharing your memories. As we move on, I just wanted to echo the same kind of feelings. He was so much hospitable to all his fellows, his students, and even when we were there, I still remember the airport when we were sitting in the car. His call came. Okay, everybody good? Is the Godfather inside? Okay, give it to him. And then he was speaking to me. All okay, received well. Come on, we don't even expect to be picked up. We don't even expect a fellow of his will come. And here we are sitting in the car. People are picking our bags, and Freddie Fu, is calling us and finding out. Amazing. He is a person, and from whom we learned that when your desires are strong enough, you will appear to possess Superman powers to achieve. And he was really a Superman. And as was described by D. Gioia, he was a tornado of energy. And I cannot agree more. That is the kind of person he was. We now have Professor Charanjeet, who will share his memories. We know all about Professor Charanjeet. He's from Kuala Lumpur, practicing at the Gleneagles Hospital, does a lot of sports medicine work, has many memories with Professor Fu. May I request Dr. Charanjeet to please give his presentation. We have a video and then he can speak a little bit live. Yes, Ashok.
Hi, good evening. Okay.
Yes, Dr. Charanjeet.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Charanjeet from Kuala Lumpur. I'll be representing the APUA sports surgeons. Our thoughts are reflected in the short PowerPoint video, which is prepared by us. We also reflected a bit of the fun side of Freddie. So let's watch the video and our thoughts are put into it. Thanks.
Hi everyone, I'm Charanjeet Singh from Kuala Lumpur, representing Asia Pacific Orthopaedic Association Sports Fraternity. The first time I met Freddie was at ISACOS meeting 2005 in Hollywood, Florida. At that time, I was with John Bartlett in Melbourne. Freddie was always generous with his time and his knowledge. He had such enthusiasm for orthopedics and was a staunch advocate of achieving the best results for the patients. He dedicated his life to the betterment of orthopedics and went through great lengths to impress upon us the importance of continuing medical education and research. His very sudden demise has brought great sadness to us in the APUA community. We will all be so lucky as to have just 1% of his boundless energy and enthusiasm. Rest in peace, dear Freddie.
You can see it really well. So I do not know who have the idea. Somebody did some cadaver from Japan and say this is not important. And after I walked through the Costa Rica forest, I'm telling you, everything is important. Even the ant you know, marching in the woods is important. Every tiny ant is important because they bite my foot. I know that it hurts me. Okay, they're important. Okay. All right, this is an incredible ligament. This is called the Michael Jackson ligament. All right, Michael Jackson. See that? Do you have the song? No song. Black and white. Black and white. White and black. Okay, this is the new Smith & Nephew. $10. How about that? You can. This is shoelaces. This is shoelaces. This is look at that. You can get as big as you can. This is what it is all about. Everything is common sense. There's nothing extraordinary. I'm telling you, I'm not a very smart and good surgeon. I'm okay. I won't screw up too bad. Okay, but but I take my time to look at every case, and I'm learning. Every time I like turning the thing, again I'm learning because I know there's a split between the two. Just by turning 90 degrees, you can see that, you know, 1/3, 2/3, much better. And you have a good perspective of the whole insertion site of the femur. Very good. You've never seen it before. Okay? Just by changing things a little bit. These are subtle, small things that you have to pay detailed attention to. It doesn't cost any money. No company can sell you anything. This is all you to do. And this is what I'm telling you. This is going to last for a long time because there's nothing changed. You know, this is going to be the same. I don't care how you do the ACL, what fixation you're going to use, what graft you're going to use, single or double bundle or whatever it is. Now, the other thing is if you're going to do one bundle augmentation, you don't have to use this technique because you won't see the two part of that one. If the AM is intact, the PL is taut, you have to use this kind of technique to evaluate the whole thing much better, okay? Okay, so I appreciate it. Thank you very much, and thank you for the expert here too.
Thank you so much, Dr. Charanjeet. That was a very nicely played video. And when you hear Freddie Fu, it's so difficult to imagine that he's no longer there. We are going to miss his lectures, his enthusiasm. And that's the way he used to talk. You know, single bundle, double bundle, I don't care. To do this, do that, and full of life, full of life. We have so many memories. I now want to show you one slide, whether I don't know whether you people know this, but when we were in Pittsburgh, and you can see the traveling fellows, Yuichi, Hoshino is there, and he took us to a restaurant where the noodles made by him, you can see that these are called the Fu noodles, and they still continue to sell in that particular restaurant, and he has given the recipe, and the owner is his patient, and amazing, you know, when we go there, everything is so much well taken care of, and we were. I'm a vegetarian. He made special veg Fu noodles for me. We went to the chef. He told him what to do. So that's the kind of memories we have. And you can see the UPCAS, AOSM, all the traveling fellows sitting here. So that was great fun, you know. And nothing can stop one man with the right mental attitude from achieving his goal. Nothing on earth can help the man with the wrong mental attitude. And he was the one who had a perfect attitude. You know, he was the person who really knew what to say, when to say, and a perfect attitude to life. I now have the pleasure of introducing to you one of our traveling fellows, Professor Yuichi Hoshino, who was with us when we did the fellowship. But even before we did the fellowship, he spent time in Pittsburgh. He has a direct connect with Professor Freddie Fu and has many memories of him, not only in Japan, but in Pittsburgh, and also the many conferences they attended together. Yuichi, we will be eager to listen to your tribute. Over
Thank
to
you.
Yuichi.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep. Great. Thank you, Parag, for inviting me to this great memorial ceremony of Dr. Freddie Fu. I'm humbly representing many Japanese research fellows who spent some time with Dr. Fu, and I'd like to show some of my great memories with Dr. Fu. Next. So I was in international research fellow from 2009 till the end of 2011 under Dr. Fu. My mentor, former Professor Kurosaka, has a good relationship to Dr. Fu, and we, Kobe University, has been providing research fellows since late 90s. I was just luckily selected to be one of them. I spent almost 3 years with him and got 20 kilograms of body weight and many more. I would like to present his memory in 3 aspects. First, as you know, he is a great teacher. He taught us almost everywhere, all over the world. His lecture is always very impressive, energetic, and enlightening. He taught us in the operating room. He never stopped talking during the operation, on and off the surgery. It was really nice to know his concept with the actual cases. A lot of lucky visitors to Pittsburgh had this wonderful opportunity to have his on-site lecture. During my fellowship, I was assigned by Dr. Fu to explain the ACL anatomy using this bone model, which was good to me to know the anatomy and how to explain it to the visitors from all over the world. This is another opportunity to learn from Dr. Fu during my fellowship, the ACL meeting. The meetings were held every Wednesday mornings and took more than 2 hours each. We discussed his latest ACL cases and the research studies about the ACL. A few fellows were selected to present his research update in front of Dr. Fu and many others. He always sat just in front of the presenting fellow like this, and always asked critical questions. We had to keep the best effort in front of him. This meeting developed our research and presenting skills so much. He taught us in the international meetings too. This is a picture taken in the ACL study group 5 years ago. The world's top ACL surgeons and researchers discuss about the anatomy of the ACL. Dr. Fu's speech in the discussion was one of the greatest of all time. I cannot say in detail at this time, but some people still remember how he taught us what the anatomy means. When teaching his fellows, whichever clinical or research, he repeated this phrase, do the right thing and take good care of your patient. This phrase came from his mentor, Dr. Ferguson, but this is what we have to follow as Dr. Fu's fellow. Anyway, I like this picture, which was taken one day after his long outpatient clinic. He pretended spanking by his belt to discipline us. This picture shows how his mentorship was going. His words are sometimes harsh, but full of love. We fellows knew it and accepted it positively. And you may also notice the diversity of the fellows. He really took good care of us, no matter who we are. As you all know, he is a great entertainer. He naturally has an incredible talent to make people happy. We can make almost any types of people smile within a few minutes. Look at all the nice smiles in the picture, like this. Some people know Fu's grip. He really likes wine. He always treated people with good wine. Some people had already known, but at some point, I found his characteristic way to hold the wine glass. He holds the glass in the fist, whenever and whatever it is. Recently, I sometimes drink wine by holding with this Fu's grip to remember him. I was really lucky to join this group of people thanks to Dr. Fu. The circle of his friendship covers all over the world. He treated us like his family. Actually, he is a godfather of my daughter, who was born during my fellowship. He named her Joy. She is now 10 years old, very smart, energetic, just like Dr. Fu. After finishing my research fellowship in 2011, his mentorship and our friendship has been continuing up to now. I can meet him in the meetings and others. He has always been a great mentor, a great friend, and a great father for me. Thank you, Dr. Fu, for everything. Please rest in peace. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Yuichi. That was
Thank
a
you.
very emotional presentation. And I still remember the respect, the connect you had with Professor Fu, and you connected to the city so well. So nice to hear your tribute. We now have the next presentation from Vikas Khanduja. Vikas Khanduja is from UK and very, very active with the CCOT group. So he's also will be presenting the CCOT group. And thank you, Vikas, for joining.
Right. Good evening, everybody. And thank you very much, Parag and Ashok and the Ski Executive for giving me this opportunity to share a tribute to Freddie. Now, it is definitely an honor and privilege to share a few memories that I've had with Freddie and say a few words of remembrance as well. Now, all of us have had the opportunity to meet him and interact with him on various occasions. But the two that really stood out for me and have imprinted in my memory have been the meeting with him in Dubai when we invited him as the plenary speaker in 2012. And then secondly, at a meeting in Cologne in Germany, where I was able to have a very personal chat with him. And what really stood out in both these meetings was the human being that was Freddie Fu. So he obviously has had a phenomenal amount of personal skills, extremely approachable and charismatic, full of positive energy and an absolute free spirit. He could certainly light the dance floor and be the heart of any party. Equally, at the same party, you could sit down with him and have a fairly personal chat about life, vision, children, etc. And on the academic side, which I've tried to imbibe in my own life and career, is his academic curiosity. Now, as you all are well aware, he had over 69,000 citations, a phenomenal amount of impact on anterior cruciate ligament surgery, reconstruction, and management. But along with it came the drive and the curiosity to know more about this, and the humility with which he would present his lectures or converse with you at meetings, saying clearly that he didn't know enough about the ACL and he wants to know more. And that really stood out and has had a huge impact on me personally. So these are the two sort of memories and the things that really stood out for me in Freddie, and that I've tried to imbibe in my own career as well. So certainly a huge loss to the orthopedic community, especially the sports surgery community. Freddie, you'll be sorely missed, but may the legacy of Freddie Fu long continue. God bless. Rest in peace. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Vikas. Are you live? Thanks, Vikas.
I am live, and I'm really humbled and privileged to be a part of this elite group listening to all the messages of remembrance. Just one thing I would like to add is sincere condolences to his family and to his loved ones and all his colleagues in PITS as well. So thank you for this opportunity, and rest in peace, Freddie. Thank you.
Thanks, Vikas, for being there. And Vikas is also a founder member of the Society of Knee Surgeons of India. Thanks, Vikas. We now go to a tribute from Mohit Bhandari, who is from Hamilton, Canada, and he's the orthopedic chair there and also the editor-in-chief for Ortho Evidence. So may I request Ashok to please play Mohit's video.
Hi, I just wanted to say a few words about Professor Freddie Fu, who has left an indelible impact, I think, on the lives of many of us. And I think part of the reason why we are taking moments around the world to pause and to celebrate. I remember my first interaction with Dr. Fu back in 2003. I was just finishing my trauma fellowship at the University of Minnesota with Professor Mark Swinkowski. And I was asked to go speak and give a grand rounds. And I'll never forget the first meeting with Dr. Fu. He was kind, he was generous, he was attentive, and most importantly, he was genuinely interested in my life and how he could help me get better. When I think about mentorship broadly over the years, you can think of the mentor as someone who has that delicate balance of not creating you in their image, but giving you the opportunity to grow and create your own image. I often think of mentors like Professor Freddie Fu as individuals who see a future for you that you can sometimes not see for yourself. I invited him back actually when I became head of orthopedics at McMaster University in 2012. It was our first inaugural annual academic day under my supervision. And I thought it would be fitting to invite individuals that I felt could really provide a real sense of what McMaster was about and the importance of evidence-based practice. I had Professor Gordon Guyatt give an opening oration. And of course, Professor Freddie Fu, who generously agreed to come to McMaster and share his views. Once again, he was enlightening, he was kind, he was compassionate, and more importantly, he got everybody excited about orthopedics and reminded them that data was critically important. He was evidence-based, and for that reason, I have always held him in the highest respect. I continued to meet him, and I think about 5 years ago, and time does fly, where we met again in the United Kingdom. We were there doing a co-lectureship as part of the BART's annual orthopedic day. And I can tell you again, that along with myself and Professor Rajgopal was there as well. I think he remembers that event as well. We had a wonderful time together. And I can go on and on, as many of you are. But I think the point I think we're all making today is he is a one-of-a-kind and was a one-of-a-kind generational educator, mentor, and talent. The only way that we can honor his legacy is to take his teachings and in some small way, if the many thousands of us do what we can to honor him, we do it by teaching just a little bit to the next person of what he taught us. Wishing you all the best, and once again, honoring Professor Freddie Fu.
Thank you very much, Mohit. I think you clinched it. That will be the greatest tribute if we can teach with his enthusiasm, with his excitement. And, I like the one word which you used when the first time you met him and you were giving grand rounds. He was attentive. I think that's what, otherwise many people tend to just lose focus in somebody who's presenting, but he will make sure he's listening and, very, very attentive. And as you rightly said, gets everybody excited around him. That's him. He cannot sit quiet. He cannot sit in one place. He's always moving, little jittery. He's always, he cannot stand still. But that's Freddie Fu, how he gets you excited and how he gets you motivated. We now move on to another colleague of mine who was with the APCA's AOSM Traveling Fellowship, Dr. Gandhi Solayar from Malaysia. And he was an incredible person. I remember when he was at the fellowship, he was the heart of our group. He used to make his presence felt like Freddie Fu. And, wherever he went, he used to lead the group. So Gandhi, nice to see you. And over to you for your tribute. Over to Gandhi from Malaysia.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Parag. It's great to see everyone here. My friend Yuichi, Nathan White is here as well. Thank you very much. And I'm very, very honored. And to be quite honest with you, I'm very overwhelmed. There's lots of great surgeons around the world. I'm probably the least qualified here. But I just want to share my 2 points on Dr. Fu. Anyway, my name is Gandhi. I'm from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And as Parag alluded to, we were fortunate to be selected as the APCA's Traveling Fellows under Parag with Yuichi, Nathan, and myself from Malaysia. And among the places that we visited, Pittsburgh was the highlight of our trip. And just wanted to share a few of the pictures. Here's us with Uncle Fu doing the double bundle dance, which was phenomenal. He took the time. He's such a busy man and such a renowned surgeon, but he took the time to show us around the Steelers training ground, the Sports Medicine Center. And to be quite honest, I was just completely blown over, by the generosity and the nicety of the great man himself. I'll just talk about 2 small things, life lessons and what I actually learned and I'm putting to practice. And one great thing was when I was talking to his research fellow, Ben Rothroff, who was very nice, who took us around the whole of Pittsburgh. And he did mention to me as like, Gandhi, the man doesn't sleep. He texts me at 5 a.m. He's at work at 5:30 to 6. And I was just thinking to myself, oh my God, I'm in KL. I wake up at 6 and I begrudgingly take my car out at 6:30 and I'm at hospital at 7. And I was just, one great thing I've learned from Dr. Fu is, you got nothing to complain about. Whenever you feel tired, know that many, many great surgeons, including those that are speaking here today, have put much more effort than myself. So stop feeling sorry for yourself. He's a great man because he puts in his time. And thanks to his time, thousands of surgeons around the world are grateful and have the knowledge to treat our sports medicine and especially our ACL patients better. Another thing and this Parag wanted me to show, we were really treated like princes and kings. Those wine bottles, actually Dr. Fu came up to me to tell me the price of the wine bottles. And I was like, I've never spent, I think, the grand total amount on wine until I went to Pittsburgh. Dr. Fu was kind enough to take us to this restaurant. We had the Dr. Fu noodles, which actually was very nice. Malaysians, we love our food, but I have to say, I would go back to Pittsburgh and have those noodles again, And one lovely thing I still remember, this is a photograph I took from my little phone, Freddie Fu's car, FF8888. If anybody speaks Mandarin here, that's pak, 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 pak. Very lucky number, a tribute to a great number plate for a great man. Anyway, from the academic side of things, I think Dr. Andy Williams and especially Dr. Alan Getgood, referred to this. He did always strive to adapt with evidence. He was, apart from Professor Kurosaka, he was the one that came up with the double bundle, modified it and, perfected the technique. And I have never done a double bundle. I still do single bundles. And even he was, when I mentioned him, he drove us to OT, and the single bundle Gandhi, make sure it's anatomic. That's the greatest thing he ever told me. I still do it the way Uncle Fu taught me. And I'm happy to say a lot of Malaysian athletes are still grateful to him. Small little tip, he was kind enough to show us. He gave us a presentation about protecting the lateral meniscus blood supply, which, to be very frank, I must have read it once or twice, but I have ever since, for the last 3 years since my fellowship, protected this, and that's thanks to Dr. Fu, a great surgeon, a great man, took his time with, a real I'm from the jungle of Malaysia, I have no business to be in Pittsburgh, but yet he was kind enough to sit down there and talk to us, and, a great host. Anyway, this is my end of my presentation. I think the whole world of sports surgery owes so much to the great personality that is Dr. Fu. In my humble capacity, I'm very grateful to Uncle Fu for our short stay, for what he taught me, and the little that I've learned. I'm now treating athletes in Malaysia and our international athletes back home. I like to think that a little bit of that comes from Uncle Fu. So thank you very much, Uncle Fu. You are sorely missed. May you rest in peace, sir. You're a great, great person, and the world thanks you. Thank you very much, Parag and SKI, for the invitation. And thank you very much for allowing me to share this stage with great surgeons around the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gandhi. That was a nice presentation. You're a very humble man. I know your accomplishments in Kuala Lumpur, but thank you so much. It's my now privilege to introduce a person who needs no introduction, who's also a founder member of SKI and the Secretary of Society of Knee Surgeons of India, Sachin Tapasvi, who has taken Pune globally because of the Pune knee course which he runs. And for the last couple of years, the course could not be run, but I'm sure it's going to happen very soon, and we look forward to seeing all of you there. Professor Fu came for the Pune knee course, and I have such fond memories, but let's hear from Sachin, his inspiration, what he learned from Professor Fu. Over to Sachin. Sachin is yours.
Thank you, Parag, and thank you all of you for being here for this fantastic remembrance for Professor Fu. I think there are very few people who really touch you, and he is definitely one of them. He has been associated with India for a very long time, and we've heard a lot about his nature, his humbleness, his humility, his eagerness to learn, his eagerness to teach, and his eagerness to share, which are, I think, three qualities that I have imbibed from him. Always ready to move ahead with a smile, always forthcoming to share. And this was when I first interacted with him way back in 2008 when he came down to Goa. Prior to that, I had met him in Pittsburgh for the Panther Convention. And the day he landed at the airport in Goa, he called me from the car and said, "Okay, I've come. Take out the graft. You're going to remove the graft. I'm going to do the surgery and start." I said, "Well, the surgery is day after tomorrow, so let's settle in." "Okay, fine, but you come for my surgery." So he was always on top of things. He would never allow things to get up to him. He was always well organized, and this is one thing that I can really remember. He came back later to Pune in 2014, where we had, he taking over the stage as being our orator. Needless to say, he was the star of the show. Wherever he went, he was always swamped with people, always swamped with questions. He had a great appetite for good food. And, at Charanjeet's meeting in Goa, he said, "I'd rather, die eating chicken rice than, being in some bad place." And Charanjeet can remember that well. When we were sitting at the dinner table, he used to love food. And he also had a great appetite for teaching. And you could animated discussion. He would take to sort of show things around, explain. And what was important is that not only would he, be eager, but there he was taking the odd picture of some slide that would interest him, and then come back later and make a same point about something that had been missed out. And that was the enthusiasm of this person. Never-ending enthusiasm, and as you can see, everyone absolutely, completely focused and what he wanted. We honored him with the oration, which was a big landmark for all of us. And his blessings will continue to completely inspire us for all our life. He inspired me to write a book. He inspired me to get into research. And he's inspired me to be the kind of surgeon, the kind of human being who I am today. We've spoken innumerable times at various meetings. Every single time he would find, sometime he would come up, run to me and say, I'm going to see you at so-and-so place at, 7 o'clock in the morning, be there, sit me down, talk to me for 15, 20 minutes, ask me what I was doing, tell me the way to go ahead. And that's what you are. You're a father figure for me, Professor Fu. You'll always be remembered. We still can't think that you're not with us physically, but mentally and emotionally, you're there in our hearts, right exactly where you should be. And thank you so much for whatever you've done, not just to me, but for all of us all across the world. You've touched our life in every single way. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sachin. Yeah. He truly touched everybody he met. There cannot be a person who doesn't have a memory of Professor Fu. Once who came in his contact will always remember him a lifetime. We now move on to a few videos. We have last 3 videos to go, and these are the people, because the time differences, could not attend. We now have Joao Mendes from Portugal, who has been the past president of ESCA. And may I request Ashok to play Joao's video. Joao Mendes just called me and he told me, please introduce him. He was my brother and I really miss my brother. So let's hear what Joao has to say. Thank you, Professor Joao Mendes. Again, some amazing photos, lovely memories. Joao wanted to be here, but could not be here. I would now request Ashok to play a video by one of his fellows, Ben Rotaraf, who was alluded to earlier by Gandhi and Yuichi, who took us out when we were in Pittsburgh. Ben Rotaraf, Professor Fu's fellow.
Greetings to all in India and beyond as we virtually gather to celebrate the life and career of one of my heroes, and certainly a friend to many, Dr. Freddie Fu. My name is Ben Rotroff from the University of Pittsburgh. I've been at Pitt now since 2010 when I started the MD PhD program and was so fortunate to work as Dr. Fu's research fellow from 2018 to 2019. I've since been a orthopedic resident at Pitt and have continued to rely on his lessons and leadership throughout my time clinical training as well. I'd like to give special thanks to Dr. Sanchetti for the opportunity to speak today on behalf of the many people at Pitt, and in particular to my experience and relationship with Dr. Fu. Dr. Sanchetti was one of the APCAS godfathers who visited Pittsburgh in 2018. Coincidentally, APCAS and SLARD both had traveling fellowships that year that crisscrossed North America, ultimately ending at the AOSSM meeting in San Diego. Pitt was unique in the sense that we were the only location that both SLARD and APCAS fellows met. So it was great fun, and here's just an example of Dr. Fu being the consummate host in showing all of the fellows around his beloved city of Pittsburgh. But of course, Dr. Fu himself had also already been to India. In 2014, he went to the Pune knee course with just some photos of the fun that he had shown here. Now, Dr. Fu taught many lessons to many people, certainly myself not being excluded from that. And in particular, I think he had a tremendous influence on medical students and young doctors. He was fond of giving this lecture at various forums, including the white coat ceremony, which essentially is the commencement for the young doctors starting medical school. And he's put this on YouTube, so certainly for anybody who's interested, I think there's a lot of great lessons here for particularly young doctors, but certainly meaningful to anybody just in terms of navigating a meaningful career in medicine. As far as some particular lessons that he taught me, and certainly something that he preached on to the many international crowds he spoke to, was to respect nature. He was fond of giving a story about the American bald eagle, which is actually the national bird in the United States, and it's indigenous to the Pittsburgh region. But because of all of the pollution with the steel mills in the centuries past, the bald eagle was essentially not to be found until actually a few years ago, where it returned to the city, only after a ton of efforts to clean the city up, and actually with the collapse of the steel mill. Dr. Fu would always give this story in the context of talking about his beloved knee ligament. If he had a favorite child of the knee, it was of course the ACL. And he always was preaching about respecting anatomy and respecting nature as the key to guiding treatment and clinical outcomes. And certainly a lot of his early work in anatomy was facilitated with a collaboration with the famed anatomist Pau Galano, and I think produced some of the most beautiful photos of the knee anatomy that you could possibly find. Here's a picture of Dr. Fu in the bottom right with Pau when he was visiting the United States with, of course, Dr. Fu's wife, Mrs. Fu. Dr. Fu would also, take pictures himself and tell you to take pictures. I don't know if that was encouragement or actually a command, but many of you have been the recipients of his daily emails where he would send out some landscape or a particular scene from Pittsburgh. And certainly he was fond of certain sites around the city that always produced beautiful photos with the different seasons. And I used to think like, my God, this guy's just hammering me with photos. but I always, reflecting on it, even a few years back, I thought just what an incredible way to kind of always stay in contact. So you could be, have left Pittsburgh 10 years prior, and yet we're getting daily emails from Dr. Fu, which I thought was a tremendous way of always staying in contact and certainly on the minds of your many friends internationally, so that when you did catch up, in meetings or whatnot, it was as if, you had always been in contact. Dr. Fu also, as hard as he worked, also preached to always have fun. I think, his work was fun to him. Certainly, those of us that were so fortunate to know him and to work with him also got to see that fun side. Certainly something that we'll miss, but a lot of great memories from all the fun moments that we've had over the years. And finally, Dr. Fu was very fond of showing this slide at the end of his presentation. This is the Cathedral of Learning at the University of Pittsburgh, which is one of the big academic buildings on campus. And, certainly Dr. Fu was one to always be learning, no matter how much, fame and acclaim he had gotten over his career. He was always curious and always pushing, those working for him to learn more and to develop the science of orthopedics so that we could provide better care for our patients. So I would certainly encourage all of you to take that spirit to heart. While we, of course, have lost our great mentor and friend in Dr. Fu, we can certainly honor his legacy by continuing in his spirit of research and patient care and friendship. So with that, I want to thank you again for the opportunity to speak on my experience with Dr. Fu, and I know he is certainly an inspirational figure for many out there, and we will sorely miss him. So my apologies for not being able to be there in person today. Unfortunately, I was tied up with some clinical duties, but nevertheless, I share in the spirit of celebrating Dr. Fu and hope to see you all very soon.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Ben. He was a person who was there when we did our traveling fellowship. As we come to the last talk, I just read something which was written by Ananta Shekhar, who was Pittsburgh's senior vice chancellor for the health sciences. What he says is really amazing. If anyone could come close to the perpetual motion, it was Freddie Fu. Wow, what a comment. If somebody can come close to perpetual motion, it was Freddie Fu. That's an amazing comment. He also goes on to say Dr. Fu was always learning, thinking, teaching, doing something to make life better for his patients, trainees, and the community. His influence in the field of orthopedics in Pittsburgh and throughout the world is monumental, and his legacy profound.
Hello everybody, this is Mark Clatworthy here from Auckland, New Zealand. I think it's wonderful you're having this tribute to Freddie Fu in India. Unfortunately, I can't join you as it's the middle of the night here in New Zealand. I was very privileged, lucky and honoured to know Freddie very well. I was a fellow with him in 1998, and then through ISAKOS, the Herodicus Society, ACL Study Group, and a plethora of other meetings, got to spend a lot of time with him. I think, as many of you know, he was a man of phenomenal energy, an insatiable appetite for research, and particularly his love of the ACL. He took the double bundle philosophy and then moved it on to individualization of the knee. And I think that really is the way the world is going, as we tend to personalize what we do. But not only was Freddie a phenomenal surgeon, a teacher and researcher, he was a wonderful man who had an incredible heart and a love for those who had worked with him. So I think he's a phenomenal role model to us all. I'm sort of preaching to my young now that L3, F2, live life like Freddie Fu. There was never a dull moment. Every second was utilised. I was speaking with Volker today and sort of got more insight into the last sort of month of his life. He only actually announced to his department 4 weeks before he passed that he was ill. And he was fantastic to them all, and when they were sad said, "Don't worry, I've had a great life, I've got no regrets." And that's the way we should all live our lives. So all the best to you in India. Hope to see you soon. Freddie is going to be giving the presidential guest lecture at Isakos, so I would strongly encourage you all to go online and load up for our virtual Isakos meeting to hear the last ever lecture from Freddie Fu. Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me.
With that, we now move on to the last talk we have from Nathan White, who was also one of the fellows from Melbourne, Australia. And then we finish the tribute for the evening after Gordon, his son, says a few words. So play the last video, Ashok.
Good evening, everyone. I feel very honoured to be able to present my tribute to Professor Freddie Fu, the magician of knee arthroscopy, on this sad occasion this evening. My first impression of Professor Fu was formed long before I ever had the chance to meet him. As a young doctor with an interest in orthopaedics, I'd hear stories from my boss's time on fellowship with the great Freddie Fu, and to me then he absolutely seemed larger than life. It wasn't until much later I was fortunate enough to visit Pittsburgh as part of a travelling fellowship, where I experienced the academic excellence and the wonderful hospitality shown by Freddie, Volker and the team. Of course, I learned that my impression of Professor Fu as being larger than life was correct, if in fact perhaps a little understated. It's often said that there's a risk in meeting your heroes, yet I found those at the very top are often inspirational and also very welcoming. And this has never been more true than with Professor Fu. He was generous with his time and knowledge and showed real interest in those around him. I could only guess the number of aspiring surgeons he's been approached by, and I trust they were welcomed and encouraged in the way our group was. It was apparent this extended beyond his professional life as well. He'll possibly remain the only person I've ever met to have an item named after them at their favourite lunch spot. To me, this shows that despite being an undoubtedly busy man, he took the time to not just interact with those around him, but to truly see them, and then, even more importantly, to make sure they felt seen as well. This isn't something many of us can do well, and I'm sure those who can do it don't always find it easy to do. And yet it's possibly one of the most important things we can do for our friends, family, and our colleagues. This leads me directly to the first professional lesson, which is the importance of being inclusive as a leader. The importance of seeing those around you, their hopes and needs and potential, not only their skills and what they can offer to help you today. The professional legacy that Professor Fu leaves behind exists in no small part because of his skill in building a team around him, his talent as a leader to inspire the next generation and to get them involved. It's all too easy in our professional lives to allow our competitive nature to get the better of us. It takes effort to focus on those around us as much as the goal ahead. But when we make the time to pause and do so, we see how much more we achieve when we open doors for one another and work together. The second professional lesson I'd like to mention is the importance of innovation. One of the things that impressed me most during my visit was the academic culture. Of course, I'd long heard of double bundle reconstruction, but I was truly impressed by the way this had evolved to find its place within a methodical, individualised treatment algorithm. And there always seemed to be yet another laboratory just around the corner, and inside the equipment would be impressive. Yet I'm sure the key to success wasn't the equipment, but rather that there would always be a team sitting out to answer a question. And when they talked to us about their work, we all found the topic important, and they made it seem so logical that it made us all wonder, why didn't I think of that? Of course, it takes enormous understanding and years of unseen effort to present complex ideas in simple, logical terms. And here was a whole string of groups doing just that. That speaks to a deeply ingrained culture of where innovation is the norm. I've no doubt that Professor Fu's legacy will grow as the projects still underway answer their questions and drive the innovation that will advance orthopaedic practice for many years to come. The second personal lesson I took from Professor Fu was to approach life with energy and curiosity. I quickly appreciated that Professor Fu had a profoundly inquisitive, curious mind. I suspect this was largely responsible for his ability to see people as well as to make them feel seen, to gather a team around him, and to be innovative. My memories of Pittsburgh are not dominated by academia or technical expertise, although that was clearly there in abundance. They're balanced by social moments. My eyes were opened to architecture with a visit to Frank Lloyd Wright's Falling Water, and for a long time after, I'd regularly find photos Professor Fu had taken around Pittsburgh in my inbox. I'm sure many of these photos were taken while he was going about his busy day, and that he took a moment to stop and wonder at the view or notice the changing seasons. His energy and curiosity presented him with a chance to experience much in life, and I think perhaps the most important lesson I learned from my brief time with him. I was humbled to have the chance to present tonight, just as I feel honoured to have the chance to have met Professor Fu. His legacy is real and lasting, and indeed will continue to grow. From Melbourne, thank you, Professor Fu. May you rest in peace.
Thanks, Nathan. Thanks for that message. As we come to the end of today's program, I want to request Gordon to convey our condolences to the entire family. Your grandmother, Mabel Fu, Professor Fu's sisters, Suzanne and Janet, of course, your mom, Hilda, Professor Fu's brother, Frank and Nigel, your sister, Joyce, Professor Fu's grandchildren, Ludwin, Alexander, Axel Y, Kendrick and Kason, and to all your extended family. Please convey our heartfelt condolences on behalf of the entire sports medicine community, on behalf of all the orthopedic surgeons of the world. We really feel very, very saddened to hear about this huge loss. May I request you, Gordon, to please say a few words on this occasion.
Dr. Sanchetti and everybody that is on this call today, have to thank you. You are all pillars of the orthopedic community in your own right. You took a valuable 2 hours out of your Sunday, or some of you creeping into Monday morning at this point. And I am, from our family, my mother, my sister, and I, our family, we are just so grateful that my father has had such good friends through his life, people that came before him, and then hopefully the people that I think some of you mentioned that are going to keep carrying the torch on. But I have to tell you, he could not have done it alone. Some of the last things that he was telling me about were how much he loves everybody, loves all of you. And the thing that, and I'm not going to stay up here and talk for a long time because I know we have other things going on today, but what I wanted to say is I want the stories to continue, not just with him, but your own stories, because one day your children and your grandchildren and all the other people that love you are going to want to hear those stories about their father or their mother, and how those people were not just influential in the family life, but as you can see how much I don't know about his influence in the professional academic community, and I'm just scratching the surface. And my children, they have no idea. They just know him as this guy who loves to take pictures and just as a fun guy that buys them lots of candy and takes them to the amusement park. And it's great. But maybe one day some of them might go into medicine and they'll be like, what is going on with this guy? You know, so it's going to be fun to see how things develop. One thing Dr. Sanchetti brought up was the vegetarian Dr. Fu's noodles. So in the restaurant, they are actually served with chicken, but the original one that he prefers is actually vegetarian. So you actually got the original recipe, but that's not on the menu. So just wanted to let you know. And I know you all had great points. I made comments on just because I don't know many of you. Some of you have met, and some of like Anil, I just happened to run into that night. I didn't actually meet him in person before. But even if you did disagree with him, and I have too, and maybe not like Volker, I haven't been fired because he can't fire me as a son, but he can get quite passionate, but he will make, and even myself, defend in a way that is respectful. And I think that's a good lesson, like he said, that you're never going to lose. You're either going to win or learn. So thanks everybody for your time today. My mother, my sister, and I, it's not been easy, but hearing the stories from you and you just all taking the time today to do this, incredible. I'm just humbled, and we are all very humbled by this. So thanks again for everything. And remember, take time for your family and go back and rejoin them, or if they're already sleeping, then at least get a good night's rest. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Gordon. Those were really golden words coming right from the heart. We really appreciate, and believe me, he was a person I don't think anybody can ever forget. In his lifetime, which was cut short, he has left us with so many memories which will last us more than few lifetimes. So with that, I want to thank everybody today for taking the time on behalf of the Ski Executive Committee, Ashok Rajgopal, our president, Sachin Tapasvi, our secretary, Raju Ishwaran, who's our treasurer, Dr. Ashok Sham, who's the research chair, and also he heads the OrthoTV, through which this program is being telecasted to probably more than few thousand orthopedic surgeons across the globe. More than 30,000 orthopedic surgeons got an invite to this program, and we'll know tomorrow probably how many attended, but thanks, Ashok. I want to thank everybody here for being there. David, it's 40 minutes past midnight, but thanks for being there, still suited. Really, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Patrick, thank you so much. Andy, really feel very happy to have you. Alan, awesome. Thank you. We look forward to seeing all of you in Pune. Yuichi, thanks for being there. Dr. Brown, it was really nice that you made time. And Patrick and Gandhi, thank you. Thank you so much. And it's now, we are getting to end of this program. Freddie Fu will be dearly missed, but his legacy will continue through his memory and through the teachings he has given us. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, and may his soul rest in peace. Please give our condolences to your family, Gordon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Parag. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Parag.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
Good night.